Hello, fellow refiners. I'm Tony co-host of Refinement, Not Retirement, the podcast. And I'm joined today by my wife, soulmate, and life partner, Christine, on this lovely, crisp, but sunny Cotswolds day. Hi, Chris.
Morning.
So we've been telling the story over this is part 3 of it. We've been telling the story of how we came to buy a home in Southwest Florida in a place called Naples, where for a period of nearly 12 years we lived a big chunk of our lives each year in the winters for obvious reasons. And so I'll tell you where we've got to in that story, but if you haven't heard the first 2 parts, start with part 1, then part 2, because it does all follow on. And our objective here, apart from reminiscing and sharing with you some of the experiences that we had out there, the practical side of this is that it may be of help to people who have been considering buying a second home, a place in the sun. A lot of people ask us about our experience and say they're considering doing the same thing, and our story seems to have an impact on them and helps them when they're going through their thought processes and coming to a decision about that. So we got in part 2, at the end of part 2. Well, why don't you say, Chris, since just to get you in here, why don't you say where we got to at the end of part 2?
Well, I think we've chosen the place, but did I bring up that we had looked at some? Yes, I think I did, didn't I? Secondhand,
Yes. Yes.
Used. But yes, I did. Yes, I did that. So, having looked at those just quickly, going back, it proved to us, which was a good exercise to do, that really we wanted brand new. Which was really rather nice. So this was, virtually the paint hadn't even dried properly on this apartment that we chose in Hawk's Nest, overlooking a lovely lake with a fountain in the middle, an upstairs unit called a condo, which is like a flat, but there was an upstairs and a downstairs. So in fact, the garage had a door in it, and when you opened the door, it went in straight into the little hallway downstairs, and then straight up the stairs and into an open plan condo.
And I
right?
think you mentioned last time that it was sort of around 16 to 1800 square feet, something like that. So it was a big, compared to what we had, I think in our apartment in London was 800 square feet on, if you're lucky.
Yes, and the way they had designed it was lovely, because you walk straight into the sort of living area, open plan kitchen, lots of light coming through out onto the sliding doors onto a lanai, 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So the master, a very big, large master bedroom with a walk-in closet, an ensuite bathroom.
The walk-in closet that we had there would be in Kensington, where our flat was, would be considered another room, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It was
yes, it was great.
It was that large.
Oh, great. Very different. Yeah. And the village, as we talked about before, the village of Hawk's Nest had its own little pool, which was lovely, with sun chairs. So you could come back, wherever you'd been during the day. And if you wanted to just pop down to your local village without getting in the car and driving down to the main club and spa, that was always a nice little treat to do.
And I mean, it was literally just a few steps from our front door, wasn't it, that? And the other thing about it was that when you went there was rarely anyone else there. So
yes, exactly.
It was almost close. It was close to having your own pool, though you did share it with other people. And of course, the other advantage of that is that you didn't have to worry about the chemicals in the pool, because that's all taken care of by an outside party.
Yes, exactly.
And although you still need that if you have one in your house, and in a later episode we'll get on to the second property that we bought there, but which did have its own pool. But you know, you get, even when you have your own pool there, you get an outside party to come in every week and keep everything, the water in tip-top, etc. condition. But
Yes,
here
exactly.
that was done for the whole village, as you say, the whole little community there was done, and the costs of that, as well as everything else, were shared. So it was minimal costs, really. But you
Yes, and
mentioned,
then yeah, no, I was just going to go back to saying that the obviously your talk about the purchase of it, because with a
yes,
brand new place off a developer, there isn't any offers to be made,
well,
as far as
they
I'm
can be.
aware.
To be fair, it depends on the condition of the market. But you know, at the time, I mean, I know that, well, I know that at the time the developer was very bullish about his development. He was obviously very proud of it, and uh, things were selling. I mean, I don't think they were selling that fast, but he felt that he could stick to a policy of not changing, of never reducing the price, and he, you know, that came through the salesperson that who dealt with. He kept saying that. Before we get on to that, you did mention that we looked at resales, so second-hand properties, just, you know, because we wanted to compare. We didn't want to feel, oh, we're
Yes,
paying, like you here in the UK, you tend to pay a premium of about 20% for a brand new property
yes, that's
over the
true.
resales. But what we
Yes,
found there is that wasn't really the case. We were, I think what we were shocked by is how expensive the resale properties were. It
yes,
wasn't that you were
actually,
getting a
yes, I'd
discount, were
forgotten that.
you? Do you remember that? You weren't really
No,
getting a discount. And we thought, well, we might as well have brand new, because it's nice having, it's the first, certainly was the first brand new property I'd ever purchased in my life, probably same for you. And there's something very nice, I think, about buying brand new, especially if you're not paying more, or actually we were paying less than we would have paid for a
yes,
resale, wouldn't we? I mean,
yes,
it was very
yes,
good value
exactly. Yeah, yes, it
indeed.
was.
So yes,
So, and in fact, just going back again, just quickly, I just realised that we were. This was late 2001 when we went and looked at these, because we didn't complete until 2002. I think February. I think it
I was
was
going
early
to say,
February.
Chris, I was going to say late 2001, but actually, I'm not sure how late it really was, because it must have been after 9/11, mustn't it?
Yeah, I think it was about the October. Oh no,
Or was it
because nine.
before 9/11 though? I can't,
No,
no, because we must have been, because I remember we were very scared flying at that time. So we
yeah,
were,
but we'd gone to
so that must have
California,
been
I
after.
know for.
Yeah. So it must have
Yes,
been after September, mustn't it? So you're right. It must have been late. Yes, it was late, but it was after 9/11. So that, just, you know, just to think about how our minds were at that time, you know, just want to talk a little bit about this decision to buy a property in Florida. I know I started at the beginning of, when we first started telling this story. I shared the fact that we traveled a lot to North America, and so it made sense, rather than keep staying in hotels, to get a bolt hole over there, a hub that we could, you know, we could fly very easily to other places in Canada and the United States for business. But there were other sort of things going on in our minds. I mean, you know, as you know, and I'm not going to go into detail about this, but I was involved in a, you know, quite a difficult divorce at the time. So, you know, this was not, from an emotional, psychological, mental health point of view, if you like, this was a very positive adventure for us, wasn't it? You know,
yes,
we
yes, it
needed our
was.
minds taken off, you know, what was going on in that divorce situation, you know, and sort of losing contact with my children and that sort of thing. So this was this was a decision that we took for all kinds of reasons, not just business, but you know, the divorce aspect of it loomed large as well. But then also there was this very emotional time of 9/11. I mean, it was fantastic, wasn't it? You know, that was like a nuclear bomb going
Well, it
off.
wasn't fantastic, but
No, I mean, fantastic in this, not in a positive sense, but in a sort of an incredible sort of, you know, event in history that we were going to the United States a lot and had tons and tons of friends and colleagues over there, including people, clients of ours who were actually in the building. So, I'm just trying to sort of give an indication of the sort of enormous things that were going on in our lives at that point. And this was an escape, really, wasn't it?
Yes,
in
yes,
many
it
ways.
was.
So let's move to, so we've chosen the condo, this beautiful condo, in Hawk's Nest. And now we needed to get into, we had to learn about, the process, the buying process, as compared to what we're used to in the UK. And although we had a lot of familiarity through our business of the US process, this was the first time doing it for ourselves, actually buying a property over there for ourselves, which is quite a lot different than acting for clients. So, one of the things, so we're having made the decision to buy, things started going through my mind, sort of as a property person. We've mentioned the sort of all these beautiful amenities that the gated community had. And of course, it made me think a little bit about London flats and service charges, and how through my career, I'd seen those service charges really rocket particularly in buildings that had a lot of amenities, gymnasium.
Also, yes, the difference is though that most flats in London are leasehold. This was not a leasehold, right?
No, but
this is an outright purchase.
Absolutely, the condo is effectively a freehold purchase of a flat, which is actually something we don't really have in the UK. It's a negative to buy a freehold flat here.
But there are charges, like you said.
Yeah, the element that I'm talking about, which is the costs, that's exactly the same. And I was concerned, because we weren't made of money. I mean, we worked very hard, and life was sort of quite tough in terms of finances. So we had to be careful and not be reckless. And I was concerned about how the cost. Actually, the costs seemed very reasonable. I can't remember what they were, but it wasn't more than about $150 a month, I don't think.
Yeah, so that was just for the club and spa.
Was it?
Wasn't it?
I can't. I don't remember.
That was just literally the.
But without sort of getting into the granular detail of it, I was just very conscious that there was restaurants there and a gymnasium and tennis courts that we've mentioned and so on. One thing that was very positive about this community is most communities, I think nearly all other communities at that time, it's not the case now, but at that time, where they had golf, and they certainly had a big swanky golf club, and
most expensive one, I think, in that area.
Very expensive and very high end on this Fiddler's Creek community. But if you didn't play golf and didn't join the golf club, you didn't have to contribute to any of those costs. Whereas other places
that was unusual.
Would have done. I think it was unique at the time.
I think it was, because you could join the tennis, or you could join the golf, or you could join both, obviously, if that's what is your thing. But you didn't have to join both, which was very unusual and
very
unique,
unusual.
yes.
So that was a very positive thing in terms of cost saving. But I was so concerned about it. I remember, and you'll remember this, I discussed it with Paul, the sales representative that we dealt with, the excellent sales representative that we dealt with. I said, is there anything that controls this monthly cost, and how do we know that it won't go up to $1,000 a month and so on? And he was very honest. He said there is nothing. It's just a matter of what the costs are. But of course, the developer doesn't want to damage sales by having too high a cost. But you may remember that cost was being subsidized by the developer at that time, and of course, that's something that gets rolled back as more and more properties are sold. So I did have concerns.
And built, yeah, because there was a development was an ongoing project, wasn't it, to build about 6,000 homes?
I think that at the time that was the very long-term plan. So
and I looked at our membership number, and our membership number was 539, which meant we were there was only 539 properties on this
Yeah,
development.
doors, 539
Doors,
doors.
as you
So,
call
so
them,
yeah,
yeah, when we
so
bought.
that's
So we were
so we were
very
the
early
500.
doors, if you like.
Yeah, we were the 539th resident. I think probably in
Yeah.
UK terms, that probably sounds quite a large number, but in Florida terms, it's a tiny, tiny number
No,
because
not
they
not on
have
the
so
amount of
much.
land that was on the space,
Yeah.
miles and miles, wasn't it?
Oh,
It'd
very,
be,
very many.
you could drive 1 mile within the gated community. A mile would, you might go a mile to get to the next development, which were being
Oh,
built further out.
more
But
than a mile, I would say.
yes,
But yes, I mean, it was vast. I mean, absolutely vast. Anyway, let's get into the nitty gritty. So, buying a property in the US is very different than buying a property here. It's a much simpler process. So one of the things that I was concerned about is whether we needed to have a lawyer, the equivalent of a conveyancing solicitor in the UK. And I remember having that discussion with Paul, and he said, "Well, you can if you want, but I can tell you that the developer won't change a comma or word or anything in the contract."
which was already prepared, right?
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
I mean, it was
they're already
standard
prepared.
stuff, but
And yes,
there was no way that so it did seem rather pointless. However, being the very cautious conservative person that I am, I still wanted to use a lawyer, and I can't remember how we found this guy. I believe he was on Marco Island at the time, but I probably was referred to him by an agent or something. But I could never get him to call me back. I mean, I think we instructed him, and but never got any communication from him. And of course, we didn't want to lose the place because it was something they wanted to sell because they'd completed it. They didn't have a buyer for it, and it was one of the, well, I think it might have been the only one that, usually you put an order in, you sign a contract, and then they start building it. But because it was a condo and they'd sold the other one in the building, it was empty and ready to sell, and carpeted and appliances in there and everything. So they just wanted to get rid, and we didn't want to lose it. So I just canceled. I just decided, well, that the lawyer's not going to call back. That he doesn't look like he's going to be able to achieve anything anyway if they won't alter
so
anything.
did we pay him then? Did we pay him anything?
No, we didn't.
No, I was going to say no. That's all right,
I think I said to him, "Well, you're not getting back to me, so just forget it." So, but he didn't even reply to that. So what I would say, one thing, yeah, exactly. So one of the things I would say is, from dealing as we used to do through our business, international relocation, dealing with many different countries and property sales and purchase process in many countries, I think we're very lucky in the UK to have the conveyancing solicitors that we have here. I mean, they're reasonable. You can get conveyancing done at a reasonable cost. There's plenty of choice of conveyancing solicitors, and there's some bad ones, but on the whole, if you do your research and choose wisely, you're going to get a jolly good service. And of course, we don't have that situation where you come up against sellers who are not prepared to alter the documentation if a reasonable point is made. And so I just wanted to make that point, that I've certainly come to believe that we have a very, very decent conveyancing system here. So looking at the practicalities, and this is the same whether you deal with a developer or whether you go through what they call a real estate agent, a realtor there. The realtor or the sales representative does the contract with you. So you either make an offer, the offer is accepted, and that's binding through, whether it be, as I say, through a real estate agent on a second-hand home, for instance, or through a new build developer. That contract is binding, but unlike in the UK, so it's equivalent of an exchange of contracts once you have the offer and the acceptance, except an exchange of contracts in the UK is almost always unconditional. You can't back out after you exchange contracts. But the contract that you sign with the seller in the US, it's binding, yes, but it can be conditional. So the most obvious condition would be, for instance, if you haven't got a mortgage, you would say, well, I'm offering you this, but it's on the basis that my offer is subject to me getting my mortgage. So you could back out, but only if you couldn't, for some reason, get a mortgage. So there can obviously be other contingencies, but it's important to realize it's not the same in that respect. So we did that. We signed a standard form. We paid a deposit. I don't know if you can remember, Chris, how much it was, but
no clue.
I don't remember it being particularly high. It certainly wasn't 10%. I don't think, was it? Or might have been.
I don't know.
Might have been. I'm not sure. But we paid a deposit. We signed the contract, paid the deposit, and we knew then. And what a great feeling that is. And we knew it was our property, didn't we? At that point.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
You know, it's not as though we've got to go through some, legal rigmarole, do searches and all that. You don't. I mean, that just doesn't.
No.
Isn't involved there.
And then you have the snagging, I think, on completion, don't you? I don't even know how what's got to be done before completion.
I'm just going through it sort of slowly through the process. So we'd gone there to, probably a week ago. We'd gone there. Yeah, it probably would have been about a week, this whole thing, wouldn't it? Maybe 2. What do you think?
What?
So between arriving there, what we said in the part 1 of our story.
Yes,
and all that,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Arriving there. But that period was probably, choosing the property in Hawk's Nest, that was probably about a week or 2. I'm not sure.
Yes, it would have been. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, would have been.
And now we were just leaving, weren't we?
Yeah.
But we knew we had the property. And there was, we didn't really have to, I can't remember, there was must have been some kind of process that had to be gone through, because we didn't complete straight away. So
I think that's what we came back for, and we went through the snagging list where it was marked that this might have to been touched up, or I would have thought there were certain items that we had to go through.
I think there was a walkthrough, but I don't know how we would have done that. Did we do a walkthrough before we left? They call it a walkthrough. When you go through and you look at everything, turn taps on and all this sort of thing.
I think we might have done, and then they, had to get those fixed before completion, I think. Might have been.
I don't remember the detail, but you do have a period. We did have a period of 2 years after we moved in to get anything, because it's a brand new property.
Oh, maybe it was done up.
I think it was done. I think it was done afterwards.
Yes, I think
so. That was another great thing, wasn't it? So let's just tell our listeners about what would happen if it was a if it was a second-hand resale. That's the word I was looking for.
That's easy, because we had that, didn't we? When we sold both properties. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll come on a bit more to that when we get further into our story. But what would have happened if we were buying a resale? We would have had a home inspection. So that's their sort of equivalent to a survey, but I think it's a lot more useful because it's more practical. It's sort of. Nowadays people rarely have, in the UK I'm talking about now, in the UK people nowadays rarely have full structural surveys. Very rarely. They're very expensive, and they are couched in all kinds of caveats saying, well, we didn't look at this and we didn't look at that. And so at the time you've got all the caveats in there, it's hardly worth having the thing done. It's only in those cases, I think, where you're buying, I don't know, a thatched cottage of 600 years old or whatever, or something that looks in disrepair. I think it's only in those cases that you would really want to invest in having a full structural survey. And again, even in those cases, it's going to be couched in all these caveats. But this home inspection that they have in the US, I think, is very practical, because
I don't.
Well,
I would argue against that based on our experience. Very irritating.
Well,
I mean, it was irritating.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. I think you're talking about.
I'm talking about the home
later.
inspection. No, I'm talking about when somebody does a home inspection when they're purchasing a second-hand home.
Yes, and so am I.
yes, and they say, for instance, that they've had the air conditioning unit checked, and you need to buy a new one before we'll
Yes,
purchase it. And there's something wrong with the roof,
no,
and there isn't.
Chris, I want to talk about that when we talk about our sale of our property at the end of this story. But I'm talking from the buyer's point of view here. From the buyer's point of view, and I think when we get into that story, you will agree with me, because the home inspection worked out very well for our buyer in the end, and we had to do jump through all kinds of hoops. But that really shows how strong it is for a buyer, the home inspection, because they check things like as you said, air conditioning units, they check the pool heater, they check the appliances, things that you don't even here. We just take that on in the UK. We just take that on trust, that the washing machine that they're leaving is going to work, and the showers don't, leak, and all that sort of thing is more taken on trust here in the UK, in my experience. And I think because we didn't have to do this on our Hawk's Nest purchase, the first purchase. So I think that is a very, very practical and useful thing, and it's very low
for
cost.
The buyer.
Yeah, for the buyer. For the buyer.
Yes.
I agree with you.
Agree.
When you're selling a property, and we'll explain more about that when we get into when we sold. But when you're a seller, it is damn irritating. I suppose it's irritating also in the UK. You get a buyer who who comes back having agreed a price and says, well, now I want to reduce the price by 20,000 because my surveyor says it needs this, that, and the other.
Yes,
that would also be irritating. But I am concerned in the UK, based on all my decades of experience being in the property market, and yours too. I am concerned that we do take a lot on trust when we buy a property, that things in there are actually going to be working when we arrive. There's not really a lot you can do if you find that the boiler doesn't work or whatever. Once they might have made a misrepresentation in the paperwork, but you're going to get a call. I mean, no, you're not, are you? So
no.
So anyway, I think that's something that I wanted to mention. So you may also remember that going back to all the amenities there, security, restaurants, all that sort of thing, lovely tennis club, etc., gorgeous landscaping. You might remember that apart from the monthly fee, there was a big upfront fee to pay, wasn't there? You remember that?
Yes, but I don't know what it was for.
Well, if you remember,
you got it back. You got it back when you sold.
So it was something that we would never see in the UK.
No, that's true. Yes.
And going back to the service charges analogy, one thing that's good about the UK is there's quite a lot of legislation to protect leaseholders, flat owners from unscrupulous. Unreasonable costs and that sort of thing, and unscrupulous conduct by managing agents and so on. There isn't really anything there that I saw that was equivalent to that. So
no, but we did have, each village had its own managing agent, didn't it? And we had to instruct them, and it had, and in a condo, for instance, it covered you had to have your roof power washed once every, I don't know, 3 years, was it? So you had no choice but to pay whatever you were paying.
Yes.
For the landscaping, you had to get your own landscaping gardeners in as a community within the community.
Yes.
And various other, I can't think, even the tarmacking, I think. There was quite a lot of extras in terms of maintaining. You couldn't paint your place a different color to next door, for instance.
Lots of rules and regulations, but all designed to keep everything in tip-top, high-quality condition.
Yeah,
we are running out
to leave cars outside. Cars.
Absolutely.
Do you remember you had to put your car in the garage at night?
Yeah, we're really come to the end of our time for this particular episode. I just wanted to say though that you'll be saying in the next episode about how you got the property ready for us, and that's you did a beautiful job of doing that. And so we'll move in next time. We'll be moving into actually talking about preparing the property and actually the excitement of moving in there and actually starting to live in Southwest Florida. So there's a lot
Yeah, well, it was an
interesting.
empty property, wasn't it? There was nothing in there. It was now we had to furnish it.
Yeah, it was you had a blank canvas. Anyway,
Yes.
I'm going to wrap up because, as I say, we are out of time, but we're having fun, sort of reminiscing about these times, and you know, that is a nice process in itself. And I hope that you, dear listener, are getting something out of this as well. And do please. Mentioned to you before, we're a young podcast growing our audience steadily. We love to have your help. If you could engage, like, share, and do subscribe to wherever you get your audio podcasts as well. You can see us recording this on video. You can engage with us through the podcast's Facebook page, which is the same name, Refinement, not Retirement, but we do love to hear from you. You can even send us voice messages if you do that via Spotify, if you have a Spotify account, because that's our main podcast host, Spotify for podcasters. And if you send us a voice note on there, we might even feature it on air. So do have a look at that, and we will look forward to seeing you in part 4 of our Florida experience, A Place in the Sun. Our refined life in Southwest Florida. But for now, it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. See you next
Bye-bye.
time.
Bye-bye.